Okay, so thank you everybody. Welcome to this seminar. It's about staying safe online and has been prepared in response to the large number of virtual meetings that our groups are hosting at this moment in time. So for those who don't know me, my name is Debs McCann and I'm Woodcraft Oaks Safeguarding Officer. For most of you, I'm sure we've spoken at times about safeguarding child protection issues. But just to clarify, this system that we're using today is called GoToMeeting. It will be recorded. We will share it through the Woodcraft Oak website to other group leaders. I have asked you all to make sure, well, I think I've already done it for you. I think I have turned off your webcams and your microphones and asked you to use the chat function to ask questions. And I'll just make sure that I keep an eye on everything as it goes through. During this session, we're going to explain what Woodcraft Oak means by online and remote programming. Every group contact has been asked to explore if they are able to do some sort of virtual program now that our groups are currently not meeting because of the coronavirus. We will also explore the risks associated to delivering program online or remotely, which are obviously slightly different to those who the risks when we meet face to face. We will look at best practice in delivering online remote program from a safeguarding point of view. There will be other webinars in the next fortnight about which is the right platform for you to choose for your remote program, and also about the best practice in facilitating online meetings. So you're not going to get all the answers tonight in this one session. And finally, I will highlight relevant policies and procedures within Woodcraft Oak that you should use to guide your engagement with children and young people. Your role and responsibility as a leader doesn't really change whether or not you are doing it face-to-face or online. We still have a duty to treat them with respect and to engage and empower our young people to lead sessions. Just the risks are slightly different, so we will go through those. And at the very, very end, I've got a few referrals to organisations who are specialists in online safety, which you may want to visit. Hopefully that's what you're looking forward to. So by remote programme, our definition at Woodcraft Oak is that remote programme is stuff that individuals lead for themselves. So you may have seen on social media, we have been advertising the 10 things to do, which is a series of resources with suggestions of activities that families can do together without coming along to a group. They were designed originally for those who live too far away from their nearest group, but with families in isolation, they have a new opportunity. The other activities we're currently promoting are the new Woodcraft Oak Climate Action Now activity resources, which have only been published this month, so they're hot off the presses. Admittedly, these are designed to be done in a group setting, but some of them can be done at home, at your kitchen table or in your garden. The staff at Woodcraft Oak will be working with volunteers to try and develop other remote programme opportunities that we can promote to the children and families who come along to our group usually, so they can still have a Woodcraft Oak experience from their home. But what we really want to talk about is online and virtual programme. This is new to Woodcraft Oak. We have been doing training webinars for volunteers for quite a number of years, but the practice of working with children and young people through YouTube or Facebook or through GoToMeeting or Zoom or whatever platform it is definitely something that we do not have very much experience of. So at this moment in time, we're dividing online programme into two areas. One where we are broadcasting something for entertainment. So you will have noticed this week that we did a storytelling and a action song campfire sing-along with Bex at the beginning of the week by broadcasting through Facebook. These work really well because actually there is very little risk because the audience do not interact or share webcams in the same way that some of the video conferencing softwares enable them to do. However, they also reduce the amount of interaction between presenters or leaders and young people. So they are good for some things, but aren't good for everything. This week and last week, our members have been trying different video conferencing software to run group nights. Now, video conferencing software is designed by adults for adults to have meetings, and meetings behave in a very different way from a Woodcraft Oak group night. We will be running a session next Tuesday to go through the positives and negatives of the different platforms that are available that you may wish to consider. With the video conferencing, there is an opportunity for individuals to see each other, to talk to each other, to chat with each other, to share news and even play games. We will be running a webinar in about a week's time, sharing best practice for virtual program ideas, which has been gathered from our volunteers who've already started using the process. The other online stuff is all our social networking, which Woodcraft Oak has been getting better at in recent years. Many of our groups have Facebook pages or groups. Nationally, we're using Twitter and Instagram. But there are other social networking that you may have heard of that young people are using. There's one particularly called Discord, which is like a living room for gamers, where they chat to each other. It's not necessarily something that we will be promoting as a safe place to do group work activity. In terms of the things that you need to be really careful as a group leader is online abuse. This is a type of abuse that you wouldn't necessarily consider a high risk in a typical Woodcraft Oak group when you're meeting physically. But I think it's really important to be aware that it happens and that it happens in any type of engagement with the internet. So it can be through Facebook, it can be through direct text messaging between individuals, and it can happen anywhere. So our advice is that we are really clear about the expectations of our participants, and that we would share concerns of online abuse in the same way that we would share concerns of bullying or physical abuse if it was happening in a group night activity. To be really clear about what we mean by online abuse, it does mean bullying, the same sort of bullying that you would experience maybe physically, it just happens in an online setting. It can be about emotional abuse, blackmail and peer pressure. For those of you who work with children and people outside Woodcraft Oak or in schools, I'm sure you may have seen guidance around sexting and people sharing or being pressured to share sexual images. This is something that young people have a lot of guidance given to them from schools, but it's something that we need to be aware of. I would hope that it's something that we wouldn't experience in a closed group session involving one of our Woodcraft Oak members. And the other thing is about exposure to other images, which can be shared as a photograph or can be shared as a film, as an attachment to comments. So it's really important that we moderate the activities that we're doing. Oops, I've gone too fast. So just be really clear, when we are doing stuff online, safeguarding is still our responsibility as leaders, in the same way that we would try and create a safe place in a group setting. We need to create that same safe space online for our young people. And we do that by making sure that they feel valued and part of the group, that they know what the purpose of the online community is, and that they know who they should turn to if they experience anything that makes them feel uncomfortable. As leaders, it's also important, in the same way we would if it was face-to-face, that we challenge any inappropriate behaviour. The things to think about as a leader and a facilitator of an online space is good communication. And that's about planning, that's about making sure that we have a group agreement with the young people, that we have communicated effectively with their parents and their carers about what to expect, and that we make sure that the communication we have is relevant to our engagement with those children and people. The relationship we have is about Woodcraft Oak and our aims and principles, and we should be using our online platform to continue to focus on that purpose and not get sidetracked into something else. The other thing to make sure that we're aware of is that we have trust between the leaders and the young people. In your virtual group program, you will be having activities with young people that you already know. So hopefully you already have a positive relationship with them. We should be looking to make sure that the program activity that we do is positive and encouraging, particularly at a time like now where everything else in life seems to be challenging and not norm. Making sure that we are responsive to people's fears and that we encourage people to be hopeful and that we celebrate the things that are going well and the friendships that we do have. Woodcraft Folk is committed to the rights of the child, and at the moment, in the current climate, it feels that the rights of the child have slipped down the priority level. So having an opportunity where young people can take ownership of their virtual space, I think, is really important. So yes, we have been reactive in the last week, creating activities, but I think as we would with a normal programme, face-to-face, we need to speak to the young people about what it is that they wish to do and what needs they would like the virtual programme to meet. The other thing that we need to be really clear of is that everybody knows who they should speak to if they have a concern. That may be you as the group leader, that could be your local safeguarding officer, or it could be an external agency such as the Mix or Childline, all of which would be willing to talk to children and people free of charge 24 hours a day to answer their concerns. What's really important is that everybody knows that they have the right to speak out and that they shouldn't be tolerating behaviour that makes them feel uncomfortable. So creating the safe culture is our #1 priority. I am sure that many of you have a group agreement when you meet physically at your venue normally. It's time to review those agreements and see if there's anything that you need to change for your face-to-face setting. Talk to the young people about what is healthy relationships and how we should treat each other. And that really means that there isn't a place for banter and joke telling, and it's quite difficult when you don't have the same social interactions that a joke that you might say in person can come across inappropriately whether or not it's typed on a text message, or if you have a delay and a lag and you can't see people's facial cues. The other thing that we should be doing is promoting sources of help and information. At this moment in time, lots of young people are feeling very pressured because they're not at school, they're still trying to do schoolwork, they can't play with their friends, they can't go to their sports and leisure activities. Giving young people the opportunity to share their concerns and signposting them to sources of support, I think, is really important at this time. And I think I always believe empowering young people is really important. So if you talk to young people about the risks of being online and the things that they should be mindful of, it helps them to take responsibility for themselves. So the next 2 slides about things that you should discuss with young people. The #1 is that relationships online are no different from relationships offline, and that we should continue to treat people in the way that we wish to be treated. So that basic thing of, if you wouldn't say it to somebody's face, don't type it, don't share it online. And I think being really clear about how we communicate with people. So the next point is the thing I said a minute ago about when you are not face-to-face with somebody, you can't necessarily hear their tone of their voice, you can't necessarily see their response, you can't necessarily respond with reassurance immediately afterwards if you feel that you said something that people have taken offence to. The other thing to be really clear of is about people's privacy and not sharing their data and not recording them without their consent and not necessarily putting pressure on them through online material. We prefer online platforms that don't require individuals to share their email address with other participants. So we wouldn't recommend things like WhatsApp, which share all their mobile phone numbers with everybody in the group. Things like Zoom and GoToMeeting, you can set your username, but you don't have to share any personal details to participate. And the other things, I think I've already said about, if you wouldn't say it to somebody in person, don't put it in an email or send it as a chat message, and that there's always a history, so we need to be careful. They should have been told things at school about not sharing their data with strangers and not meeting up with strangers. It feels that is an unlikely risk at this moment in time. other risk we need to be mindful of is about introducing children and people to unsuitable individuals. If we are meeting as a group, you're meeting with your pioneers, I wouldn't publish those meeting instructions on a public platform. By all means, email them to your group members or text them to your group members. If you have a closed Facebook group, you could use that, but I wouldn't put it on a public facing page. If you do and you make it public, there are risks that other people might participate. They might share images or chat with individuals that you don't want them to see. So in terms of our expectations, Adam has just reminded me, he's absolutely right. For those of you who are using the group system, you can send links through there and that will only go to your currently registered group members. The other thing to say about group is that they are in the process of developing their own Zoom based platform, which we'll be able to use through the group system, which is new functionality that will be ready in about 14 days time. So watch this space because I will be in touch about that later. But back to this. The first thing that you need to make sure that you do is that you get consent. I'm glad you like it, Terry. That you get consent for using virtual online program. This is something, whilst you might already have parental consent for engagement in Woodcraft Folk activities, this is a new style of Woodcraft Folk. So I think it's really important to let parents and young people and their other carers know that we're going to be doing this, how it works, and to ask for their formal consent, even if that's just by email. As a leadership team, agree what platform you're going to use and for what purpose. Is it just for socialising and catching up? So many of our venture groups have used Zoom to just talk to each other and give each other their news. Others are using other platforms to play games or to do sing-songs. Be clear with people what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And like you should have for a physical meeting, develop your group agreement and make sure that it covers everything that you want that group to do, about how we respect each other, how we will try not to talk over each other, how you're going to use muting and unmuting. I'm aware that I have muted you all so that I can record this session for others, but in a virtual group night, we want the interaction. So we wouldn't necessarily mute people unless they had excessive background noise. So talk about how you're going to take turns. If you are using Zoom, it has the functionality where you can put your hand up to indicate that you wish to talk. What's also really important with your group agreement when you're doing it online is things like not taking screenshots and sharing them, not doing recordings of the group, not posting adverts unless people have agreed to have them shared with them, and of course making sure that we're treating each other with respect and valuing the difference and variety of our members. So hopefully that's clear. In the Woodcraft Folk has social network and online communication guidance, and in that guidance you will find an example group agreement that you may wish to use with your group. The other thing you need to think about is you and your environment. So the requirement to have 2 adult members with a current DBS or a Protecting Vulnerable Group Scheme membership for those members in Scotland is still there. The public liability insurance will still cover us for doing virtual activities, but we want you to run it like a Woodcraft Folk group. The benefit of having 2 adults is that you can have one presenting and one moderating if you need to. We ask that you don't share your personal contact details. If you have your Woodcraft Folk Gmail accounts, by all means use those. If you don't have a Woodcraft Folk Gmail account yet and would like one, please email info@woodcraft.org.uk and Leanne will send you one. Dress appropriately. You hear lots of jokes about people not wearing any underclothes when they are sitting at Skype meetings. That's not appropriate for Woodcraft Folk group night. But wear your folk shirt, feel as if you're part of Woodcraft Folk. And finally, consider where you are and the background that you have. You may be tempted to do this on your sofa, but you might have other people who live in your household making noise and interrupting the session. So find somewhere where you know that you won't get disturbed and where you can relax and enjoy the session with your group members. The other thing I think about is about our audience participation. As I said, get the group agreement, identify your moderator, which can be your second adult. Don't publish your joining instructions externally if they are for your group to have peer support. If you are looking to reach a wider audience and broadcast something for entertainment, then by all means use Facebook Live or YouTube to do that, but be really clear that the platform makes a difference about what outcomes you're looking for. At this moment in time, we are encouraging local groups to look to make sure we sustain the relationships and the friendship links between our young people. So we are encouraging them to engage in peer support group activities rather than mass entertainment broadcasting. Nationally, we are looking to do some broadcasting to potential new members, as there are more families who are looking for activities to do sat at home. And in terms of our policies, our safeguarding policy covers this activity in the same way that it would cover our camps or our group night activities. So we still need to make sure that we consider the well-being of our children and people. We still need to make sure that we don't put them in a situation where they are made to feel uncomfortable. We still need to make sure that if we are concerned about their well-being at any point, that we refer that and share our concerns with our local safeguarding officer or with the national safeguarding officer. We need to follow the code of conduct that as adults we've all agreed to, which explains how we will treat young people with respect, that we will make sure that they have an opportunity to shape their programme and that we will listen and value everything that they say. A virtual programme does not enable us to develop the same relationships, and therefore it does put challenge on communicating and actually listening to children and young people. If you are concerned about the well-being of a young member, you can reach out to that individual or to their parent and just check that they're okay. If you're doing that, please consider how you're doing that and what platform is the right way to do that. My recommendation is not to send private text messages from you to those young people. It could be easily misinterpreted. You can consider sending them an email using your Woodcraft Folk Gmail email address, or actually you might just want to give them a phone call and talk to them where you can explore your concerns and make sure that they are okay. The other policies that still count are obviously our anti-bullying procedures and making sure that there is a positive peer relationship within your group. It is much more challenging to talk to young people about their behaviour when you can't see them face to face. And it may be that you need to have conversations with individuals in a smaller group through a video conferencing setup. If you're doing that, I would recommend doing that with 2 leaders and the young people involved, and make sure that their parents and their carers are aware that you're talking about behaviour issues. The other thing that's really important is to look at our social networking and online communication guidance. That guidance has been updated recently in light of our increased virtual activity. In there, you will find guidance about the things that you need to put in place before you start doing virtual programme. And that is about consent. That is about looking at what the risks are. You will be asked to do a risk assessment. We will produce a framework that we will share with you, which you may need to add to based on the needs of the individuals in your group, or you may need to add to based on the platform that you are choosing to share. In there, you will also find an example group agreement that you may wish to use as a starting point with your young members. There is also guidance in there about how we would share child protection concerns, and our procedures for sharing concerns are no different whether or not they're virtual or face-to-face. There's also information in the social networking and online communication guidance about emailing and texting, how we do that, why we do that, and whether or not we should or shouldn't be copying in parents and carers. There's also various guidance about best practice when you're using online video conferencing and whether or not you're using social media. But in terms of online video conferencing, we advise that you choose a platform that enables individuals to use without having to set up an account, that enables them to join without them having to share email addresses or telephone numbers with other participants. Ideally, one that's free from advertising, and one that enables you to direct where the invitations are going to. Most of these platforms have some form of secure encryption connection, so that you're unlikely to be hacked by people who haven't been invited. And what's also really important is to consider your target audience. I'm aware that some groups have tried to do virtual meetings with the full age range, from LTINs to DFs. Think about what works best. Think about the programme, the activities that you can do. My recommendation is that, yes, you can do full group activities, and that maybe you want to target those at families. Maybe a quiz is the right setting for that. But I also think that there is a lot that can be gained from peer support of the same age getting together and sharing their experiences of being at home and social distancing. But as a little recap, we need you to make sure that you have parental consent for the activities. We believe it's good practice that you ask the young people what platform they would like to use, but make sure that you consider the risks. It's okay to test different things. I'm aware that our groups have been using Zoom, some of them have been using Microsoft Teams, others Google Hangouts. GoToMeeting is available, and as I said, in 2 weeks' time there will be one linked to the group online management system. When you are doing virtual meetings, 2 adults are essential. If it is a closed, invited group only, the children and young people do not need to be accompanied by their adults. We would recommend that you advise all adults to supervise their children whenever they're using anything electronic. They may think as a parent that they're engaged with their Woodcraft Folk leader, but they might be doing something else. It's also really important, I think, to set a clear start and finish time and let the group agree if that's going to be extended. We don't recommend that you record sessions or part of sessions. If your group are producing something that they wish to share, make sure that all participants have agreed to recording before pressing go. And we would also like you to keep a register of the children and young people who participate in the online sessions, just in case there are any concerns or complaints that are raised following the event. And finally, for a group setting, we really strongly encourage you to make sure that it's invitation only and that invitation is not made publicly aware to others. Now, there are a number of support agencies out there who specialise in online safety. Oh no! Sorry, everybody. I've just closed my account and therefore closed the presentation. Quick. Present. Can I go to the last slide? Oh, actually. Sorry about this. So there are a number of support agencies. Youthworksupport.co.uk is a brand new website that has been set up as a response to the coronavirus. Youth clubs up and down the country have all started doing virtual programme. And on that website, there is a range of tools aimed at young people and youth workers. So on that website, you will find a section for young people about where they can go for mental health support. There's also various online safety advice aimed at children, young people and adults. On that website, you will find some training support for volunteer youth workers as well as professional youth workers, and guidance around the different platforms. They are hosting their own webinar next week, introducing people into how to facilitate good youth club sessions online. ChildNet is also a good source of support. And the other three, the NSPCC and CEOP, have a range of useful materials if you feel that you would like to run an online safety session with children and young people. The three of those, ChildNet, CEOP and NSPCC, have a number of short films, only about 3 or 4 minute long, that you might want to share. They have them for every age group that will help remind young people of how to be safe online, because I'm quite sure that a lot of them are spending more time attached to electronic devices now than maybe ever before. Now, I don't know if any of you've got any questions. If you do, please use the chat function. But I just want to say that these are interesting times and gives us an opportunity to trial things that we've never done before. And as long as we consider the children and people at the heart of what we do, we will make a success of this. So my advice to you is that you leave this session, you speak to your group about getting their consent to trial different online platforms. You work with the children and people in your group to agree an agreement of how we're going to use these, when you want them to happen. You might not have the same constraints of only being able to do them after school at the moment. You may choose to focus on a future project. As I said, in a week's time, we'll do a webinar about good online program ideas. But it may be good for the young people to focus on the future, to focus on the things that they would like to do when they can mix again. Maybe plan a summer camp activity, maybe plan a social action project that you can do when you are out, or even little bits of social action that they can do individually from their home or when they're doing their daily exercise with their family. And if you need any help at all, if you contact safeguarding@woodcraft.org.uk, we will help and advise on how to stay safe online. And if you have any concerns about the well-being of any of the children and people in your care, then please do not hesitate to get in touch. We recognise these are challenging and stressful times for many families, and that young people have had reduced access to other supporting adults or agencies in their lives, and that we should make sure that they get as much support as they possibly can while life feels a little upside down. Are there any questions? Just checking the little box. Oh, hold on. Okay, so somebody was asking for clarification about whether or not children and people are allowed to communicate with each other as part of the activity without leaders present. My advice is that it depends on the platform. I think young people want to communicate with each other, and that we should find a platform that enables them to do that. In the same way as a physical group meeting, as a leader, you aren't able to hear all conversations that happen in the physical space. So as long as all of those young people are aware of how they should be treating each other and how they should raise concerns if people behave inappropriately, then if you have the functionality on your platform to have sub-meetings and subgroups, which I'm aware Zoom does, then that is acceptable. I think when they all come back to the main group, you can ask people going, is everybody fine? Does anybody want to say anything? Jenny's asking something about Kooth online counselling. Is that a local counselling service, Jenny? Let's see if she says yes or no. In terms of online counselling, One of the things that I highly recommend is there's an organisation called The Mix, who provide a 24-hour, just going to check, a 24-hour online service to children and young people. And children and young people can access that by visiting their website, or they can do that through text messaging, or they can do that through other platforms, so that the young people can choose whether or not it's instant or not. They also have a telephone service that if young people wish to, that they can also ring up and speak to somebody. I'm told that Kooth is national. I don't know about Kooth, so I'll see. So I think we can have them. Okay. Somebody's asking again for clarification about Zoom breakout rooms. I've not used Zoom breakout rooms, but my understanding is that it's like having people in a corner of a room where you can't hear what they're saying, but they are not away from you in a separate space, as it were. So my recommendation is that yes, you can have breakout rooms without adult supervision, but only if the young people know and have agreed to the group agreement, and they know how to share concerns if anything is inappropriate. In the same way that at a group night, physically, you can't necessarily see everything and hear everything that is going on. In the Zoom main meeting, there still needs to be 2 adults. When you are, I'm told that you can put timers on Zoom breakout rooms. That's quite useful. I think when you are working with our younger age groups, then having an adult in the breakout rooms seems like a good idea to direct and support the group to do the activity. But for our older members, I think we need to enable them to have their relationships with each other, and that they will probably already be using other platforms to keep in touch with each other. So it is about empowering them to speak out if they are concerned. Thank you for volunteering, Dan, to give me any technical advice on Zoom. Are there any other questions? Okay, so just as a reminder, on Tuesday next week, we have a webinar about choosing the right platform for you. We will run through the different functionality of the platforms that have been tested by Woodcraft Oak groups. We will look at the different, oh, is that Wednesday? Sorry, I mean Wednesday, 1st of April. So on April the 1st, we'll be doing this webinar. We will run through the different platforms, how you access them, the functionality, the pluses and the minuses, and any risks associated to those individual platforms. We are also looking to run a best practice in virtual program, which will probably be this time next week, but it might be the week after. In other news, we will continue to do the Facebook broadcasts of storytelling on a Thursday, and we will be looking for other volunteers to do other virtual program aimed at young people. So if any of you wish to lead an activity, sharing a skill, please do not hesitate to get in touch. What we are interested in is if there are any other webinars that you would like, or any other pieces of advice that you would like as we make this shift to virtual programming. If you have any suggestions, either make them now in the chat function, or if after your first attempt at a virtual program evening, you come away going, I wish I knew about this. If you email debs, D-E-B-S, at woodcraft.org.uk, then we will do our best to find somebody who can either coach you as an individual, or that we can run another session for our leaders, and that we can be the best virtual program facilitators that there are in the whole of the UK. Do get in touch. I've got a request for something on inclusion, which reminds me of something else. Jack's asking for game shares that we can do online, that we can definitely do that. We're aware that whilst we're all moving to working from home and using every single technical platform we can possibly find to facilitate daily life, that some people don't have the same access to laptops or the internet or web, or that they can't print. We are doing some work with the Co-op group to produce self-led activity sheets which can be printed and collected from your local Co-op store. Now, the Co-op are slightly busy at the moment as the country seems to be mass buying everything, but we're hoping that by the time we get to Easter, that these activity sheets will be available in your local store, and that we may find ourselves reaching more children and young people and families as a result, which would be really positive. And a general Q&A, we can do that, Rachel, no problem. Okay, so I'm going to say thank you all for joining. If you have any questions, by all means do get in touch. If you have any requests, don't forget to email them to debs@woodcraft.org.uk, and we look forward to seeing and camping with you soon, hopefully before the end of the summer. Thank you, everybody. Good night.